Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And welcome to another episode in the series Dawah Ilallah, where we look at how to call people to Islam by asking them to submit to the one true God. We are calling people to the submission of Allah and Allah alone. We are not calling them for any other reason other than for the glory of Allah, for the purpose of helping them come to true salvation. Salvation found only in finding themselves in a secure position. That secure position is something that has to be done on a daily basis, not a once-off thing. You know, sometimes when you speak to somebody, the Christian or the Hindu or the Hare Krishna or the Buddhist will say, I became a Buddhist or Hare Krishna or whatever on the 15th of December 1926 or 1984, whatever. They know exact time and exact date. People ask me, when did you become a Muslim? Areeb, when did you become a Muslim? And I have to look at my watch, because I have to look at the last time I performed my salah, because that was when I became a Muslim the last time. Because for us, a Muslim is not something that happens once in our life, it's something that happens every single day. Every single day we have to submit our will to the will of Allah. It's not a once-off thing. And so putting ourselves in a secure and safe environment is something that we have to practice upon. That's why we're called Muslims, because we are ones who practice Islam. We practice the submission to the one true God. So we have completed so far, well, actually 2 sections of this book that we have been looking at. And now we've looked at why was it necessary to do dawah. Now we are going to address the next point. We've looked at what Dawah Ilallah means. We had a look at why dawah is necessary. And now we are going to move on to the next point in the book. It's entitled Dawah Ilallah. And we are moving on to what is Dawah Ilallah. What is it? After knowing the importance of dawah, we are going to now look at different aspects, at different areas and different offshoots, different paths that come off Dawah Ilallah itself. So the main concept that we have looked at, the tree of the foundation, the solid tree, has nice big strong roots. The strong roots are Dawah Ilallah. And now we have this trunk that has many branches. And those branches all come off this solid foundation, the solid tree that we have in front of us. We have a tree in South Africa, you can drive a car through it. It's huge, gigantic, it's famous. They have some of these trees like they have hotels inside them. Imagine going to a tree hotel. And I'm not talking about the tree house, it's actually inside. They've got like a coffee shop and everything inside this thing. So this is the type of structure we're talking about, a gigantic structure, which is solid. It's not going to move. And this is built on Dawah Ilallah, in submission to Allah, reading the Quran and trusting what Allah has said. So now we're going to move on to the different trees or the different parts that make up the type of dawah that we're doing. So we're going to get into more of the specifics, the nitty-gritties of everything that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to go back to the book and follow from where the book.
The first and basic dawah is to call people towards Allah, to worship Him alone and not to associate someone with Him. Say, I am commanded only to worship Allah and not to join partners with Him. To Him I call and to Him I return. Surah 13 verse 36.
So this is very, very important. The command is to worship none but Allah. This is what we've been told. What is worship? Anybody remember from a few weeks ago? Those of you here in the audience, those of you at home, see if you remember. What is worship in Islam? Short answer.
Any action in life can be a form of worship.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So all actions, everything that we do in Islam is a form of worship. We don't have to go sit on top of a mountain, sit in a lotus position, rock backwards and forwards, go on fasts and not eat for 2-3 months and hope somehow they now get into a state of worship. Or we don't need someone to play the guitar and the drums to start playing slowly and get that rhythm going, and somebody to be singing in the background with nice soft choir music to get into the mode of worship. We don't need somebody to hypnotize us to get into the mode of worship in Islam. Worship in Islam is a one-way stream. Remember, we are connecting into Allah and we walk away changed. So even though we are offering up our submission and we're offering up our prayers to Allah, it's like the computer. We put the power cable in, the computer is getting something from the power company, but it gives nothing back to the power company. It's a one-way stream. So we worship Allah so that we walk away transformed. Yes, it is pleasing to Allah when he sees his servants submitting to him. But he does not get affected by that. He's not going to change it and go, oh well, today I'm in a good mood because everybody on earth worshipped, and today I'm in a bad mood because nobody did. He's not a human. He doesn't have human-like qualities where he has mood swings and has a bad day and a good day and needs to go and have a rest. These are things that we don't find in Islam. We don't have a human as a God. We have a God who is a God, who doesn't have these temperaments. So the most basic concept of Dawah Ilallah is to call and invite people to Him, to Allah, and to worship Him alone, as we've dealt with extensively through this, and to remove all associations that people may have. And in the Quran, as we said, it's to Him that we are guiding people, to make sure that people get a very, very clear understanding that it is not to a religion, it is to the Creator that you are calling. We're not calling people to a club. We're not telling them to join Rotary, or to join Lions International, or to join a cause, to put a cause. You know, people have Facebook, they put a cause on Facebook, and everyone must join the cause. It's not one of those causes. Those are temporary. Those don't work. This is join to submission and to connect to your Creator, to plug in. If you connect to Allah, you submit to Allah. No matter how long you've been a Muslim, maybe you haven't submitted yet. Now's the time to make that choice. Take the choice. You had the opportunity to go back to La La Land and pretend everything was fine and just stay ignorant. Or you could wake up and realize what it's all about. And then it requires you to change your life. But is it going to be better? Of course it's going to be better. You're going to wake up and you're going to realize, now I know. Why was I ignorant for so long? I remember when I swallowed that little pill. Not the gospel, the real pull. The pull out of darkness and into light. The pull that gave me the solution for humanity that is found in the Quran. The pull that we've spoken about when it said that Allah will lead us out of the darkness. And when I took that pull gave me an understanding of everything that was going on in my life. And I looked, how could I have believed this for so long? How could I have stayed ignorant? Because most of us are connected. We need to unplug. We need to wake up and really see what's going on in the world. And you will find that there is true life, true understanding of what the purpose of everything is once you submit to Allah. So remember, submission is not something that is done brain dead. It's thought goes into it. You have to connect, you have to think, you have to start asking questions. So it's very, very different. So in the Quran we've looked at, it says we mustn't join any partners. The idea is to call people to Allah, that we must submit to the call that Allah has given us, and that when we submit to that call, to Him we will return, inshallah. We all belong to Allah, and we'll all return to Him. Okay, do you want to read the next verse that we're dealing with in the section?
Some other place, the Quran says the same thing in a different way. My Lord and your Lord is Allah, so worship Him. Surah Imran 51.
So you see again in this verse here that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is showing us today that it's the same God as he was worshipping, receiving the message from, is the same God that we must worship, and so on and pass on. Our inheritance is not what property you leave behind. Our inheritance is not what bank balance you're going to leave behind for your kids. Our inheritance is what you're going to take forward and give your children, what you're going to raise your children like. My brother has a son, and they were looking for a name for his son. And they gave all sorts of names, and every time they gave me a name I said no. Not that I had anything to do with it, but I don't know, for some reason they trusted my judgment. And every name they gave I said no, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, not good enough. And they came to a name, and the name was Muhammad Amir, because I believe that he will grow into the name. Yes, lots of Muslims are called Muhammad, because we want to emulate the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That's why we will find in the Portuguese community, what do they like to call their children? Emmanuel, Jesus, because they want to emulate their prophet or the prophet. So in Islam we want to emulate, so you'll find many, many people call their children by names of the prophets, or very, very important people in the history of Islam. And Amir because, inshallah, he will become an Amir of his people. This is a legacy that we are leaving behind. Not our wealth, not our money. What we're going to leave in that child. What is he going to become? What knowledge are you going to give him that will mean something? Money doesn't mean anything. Money comes and goes. Money is a means to an end. Most people who haven't got money say money it means a lot to me. And people with too much money say, money doesn't mean anything. Yes, of course money means something. But it's a means to an end. It's not the beginning and end all of life. It doesn't have anything. It's just paper. It's just junk, really. When you really think about it, it's nothing. The legacy we need to leave behind, that we see spoken here, and what we understand by this text, is that it is life-breathing, life-giving. It's time for us to take a break. When we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We're continuing with our series, the look into Dawah Ilallah, how to do Dawah Ilallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're now going to look at another ayah in the Quran, and so our brother will read it to us again, inshallah.
He is Allah the One, Allah the self-sufficient Master. He begets not, nor was He begotten, and there is none co-equal or comparable unto Him.
Subhanallah. When we read that verse, that is so beautiful, because it, sometimes we have these long arguments with people, and this just sums it all up. That He is the one and only. I mean, it should put joy inside of our hearts. It make us feel powerful. When some people put up their banners. In America, I don't get it. Americans, I really don't get this. Every time I go to America, I don't get it. I just don't understand what the flag is supposed to be doing. But Americans get they start to cry and tremble when they see a flag. I mean, I see a flag and it's like, it's a flag. And people get very emotional in America about a flag. Some countries like Britain, the minute they hear the national anthem, it's like the whole country comes to a standstill, because they're very patriotic with the national anthem. And maybe some countries like India and Pakistan, I mean, the cricket comes, everyone just stands to attention, It has the power to grab people. But when we hear this verse, this ayah, when it says, He is self-sufficient, the one and only, He is self-sufficient. He is Allah, the one, Allah the self-sufficient. It should bring that same feeling in us. We should be like an American who just wants to put flags everywhere. I went to this one place in Ohio, and literally you couldn't find the door because there were so many flags. There were little flags, big flags, long flags, small flags, everywhere. There's flags everywhere, American flags everywhere. I couldn't even see the hearts from the flags. But that's what they like. And we don't understand it. I suppose you have to be an American to understand that. But when we think of that passion that they have, I mean, they will build a flag, 10-story high building to put up. What are we doing when we think about Allah? He's the one and only. Every single day we have to submit our will to the will of Allah. It's not a once-off thing. And so putting ourselves in a secure and safe environment is something that we have to practice upon. That's why we're called Muslims, because we are ones who practice Islam. We practice the submission to the one true God. That's our flag. That is our motto. It should give us power and zeal. We must want to stand up and go, yeah, I'm ready now. Let's go. We're going to go do dawah. Come, let's go. No wasting time. But sometimes we sit and it's the one and only. We want to play it cool. No, there's no playing it cool. He's the one and only. We must be going out there and telling people He's self-sufficient. The master. When I was a kid, I grew up with Masters of the Universe. Remember? Some of you going, I don't know, I've never heard of Masters of the Universe. You remember, you're all kids. Master of the Universe, remember? Guy would pick up his sword, and he had He-Man or whatever he was, and he'd pick up his sword and he'd put it up in the air and he'd say, Master, I have the power. What was his line? I have the power or something. And then he would transform into this big, powerful creature, and he'd go beat up all these animals and all these creatures that would attack him, these robots or whatever they were. That's how it should make us feel. That's how we should be picking up the sword of truth, and that power should come over us, and not like in the Pentecostal way, but in the way that we go, yeah, now I'm ready. Not the addicted to dawah way either. I'm talking about this every single time we hear it, we should be thinking. We hear adhan go off so often, and we just carry on talking to our friends, and we walk and we carry on with our cell phones and sending text messages. When we hear the call to prayer, we really should stop. I mean, it's not that many times a day we hear it. It's only 5 times. Maybe the last time you're ever going to hear it. That truck might be coming your way. It'll squash you, you know what I mean? So let's just stop for a while. Listen. Take to heart what those words are actually saying. We're offering our salah. Someone else is offering it for the whole of humanity when He's calling to prayer. It's beautiful. Now, I'm sure you've all heard my analogy of this, where you take a stone and you throw it into a river or the water, similar to the patterns you see on the ground right here now. and it goes out to the sides of the bank of the river. Say you go to a lake or a pond and you throw a pebble in, and that ripple effect goes the whole way through. Think that everywhere in the world somebody is calling someone to prayer somewhere, constantly. Say you in New York, they start the call to prayer in New York. Then half a minute later, 200 kilometers from there or 100 miles from there, someone is only starting the beginning part of it. And then another 100 kilometers from there, somebody is only starting the beginning there. And he's now on the second line, and he's now on 1.5 line. So it's continuously, there's a delay the whole way around the world, continuously calling someone to prayer, continuously. Somebody is worshiping the one true God. That should make us think like the flags that are flying. That should give us that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. That continuously there's somebody calling somewhere, someone. Everyone's in a different position of prayer, somewhere in the world, the whole time. That is amazing to me. And this is the beauty of why we all face to one direction. It's like there's an energy, not in a new agey type of way, not in a Hindu type of way, not in a spiritualist type of way, but an energy of one ummah coming together and uniting. When you go on Hajj and you see that energy of people, you get so distracted by it that you have to actually pull yourself back down and go, okay, let me not get distracted by the awe of it all. That's why you make sure you're there for a while. Don't just go for the last 10 days or last 15 days, because it takes you about a week to get over everything. You need to okay, I'm here, now let me relax, I'm over the shock. Because if you get there straight away and you've got to go straight into your Hajj, it becomes very overwhelming. And so you'll end up looking at everything and not doing what you're supposed to do. And by the way, the Hajj is so easy to do if you follow the Hajj correctly. Please, if you're planning to go on Hajj, contact the Saudi government and ask them there's a nice DVD that they've got that tells you exactly how to do your Hajj and how to not do all the nonsense that maybe tour guides and all that are trying to sell you to do. Remember, a tour guide who sold you a Hajj package often is trying to sell you things that you don't require and that you don't need. And those two travel agents are not going to like me, but it's true. They send you out doing all sorts of things that are not part of the Hajj. And they distract you from the Hajj, and you can even annul your Hajj. And it can make your Hajj null and void. So find out what is actually required. Be very selective what books you're using on how to perform your Hajj. But that is a program for another day, inshallah. So we've seen so far, we're going off the point. Now let's get back to the point that we're actually speaking about, that Allah is self-sufficient. He's the one and only. There is no equal to him. He has no need. He has no wants. So this is who Allah is. And so we see that all the prophets that were sent came with exactly the same message. However, the Jews and the Christians went and they started to add things onto this concept. They decided that Jesus was a God. Maybe the Jews, to a certain extent, made Israel one of the co-equals God, or had a problem understanding how he fits into the equation. So even the concept of the Jews believing that God lived in a temple, that they could go to this temple and behind this veil was God living there. And many Jews will explain to you today, and they'll say, no, they didn't believe he actually lived there. It was the Shekinah, the light of God that lived there. But that's still forcing God to live on planet Earth behind a curtain in a box in a room. And this is not feasible. It's almost like catching jellyfish. You go to jellyfish and you put it in a fish tank and you say, now, it's just a jellyfish by itself, but it's part of a bigger jellyfish community out in the ocean. That's nonsense. It's separate. It's a different entity. It's very separate from the group there. It's got no collective consciousness. And so the idea that we look at many of the religions in the world, especially the two we are more interested in, that's Judaism and Christianity, started to develop concepts that led them away from truth. We have very little in common with Christianity because we are strict monotheists. We are very, very strict about it. We're not even monotheists in the sense of just one God, as maybe the Jews would call them a monotheist, because they have transformations of God doing all sorts of strange and odd things and living inside temples and living inside Ark of the Covenant, something like this, with two angels over it that he lived inside, and anyone touched it, they dropped dead because they touched God. So that's a different concept of God to what we have. Very, very different. So we have to be very cautious when we say there is little difference between, Islam and Christianity are similar, Judaism and Islam are similar. There are more differences than there are things in common. We have a different God. we have a different text. We have a different understanding of what prophets were sent for. We have a different understanding of how to submit. We have a different understanding of what it means, the 10 commandments, for example, that Judaism followed to what we followed. It's different ways of reading that thing. When we say that you mustn't commit adultery, we have a very different understanding of that to what the Christian and the Jew has. So when we talk about things, you must be careful by saying there's hardly any difference between Christianity and Islam. There are differences, big differences. And they're not small differences, they're very, very noticeable. And so, inshallah, in this series as we go through it, it's important that we look at these differences. Not just, there are a lot of people who looked at what is common between the two. And there are more problems that we have than we have similarities. So the most important thing that we have found so far is that Islam is preaching a message of separation from the idea that there are more than one God. Separation from the idea that God dwells on earth in a tabernacle. Separation from the idea that God has children, or that he is somehow, has a family on earth, or has a family even in paradise or in heaven. Well, that's all the time we have for today's program, so you're going to have to join in again, same place next time with us in the studio, and myself, Areeb Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.